remember as many people. You've now made me very nervous. Sorry?
But you have a sword.
I do have a sword, so you misbehave. Thank you all for coming. It's nice to see some friendly faces, some new friends, some old friends. It's nice to be invited back to Agile Austria. We're going to start with an exercise in self-organisation. So everyone sitting down at the tables, please stand up. Find yourself a partner to pair with. It should be easy. Yeah? I like simple. I am simple. Now, your job is to move all the tables out of the way to clear the floor area. Move to the sides of the room. Everyone out of the way. With the smoking tables. Brilliant. Now the bad news is
you have to get it all back.
When we finish, you have to put it all back. Otherwise I'll get told off. Now, the next challenge is for you three gentlemen there. Because you need to give up your chairs. And what we want to do is form a semicircle around here with 5 chairs. I'll start. No. And everyone else needs to shuffle around so that they are not in the way of the 5 chairs. Need one more chair. Who's going to give me a chair? Ah, thank you. What's your name, by the way? Julia. Thank you, Julia. Brilliant. How do you spell that, by the way? Correct. Now, I need 5 volunteers, one of whom I can already see. So I need 4 more volunteers. Right, as you're the last volunteer, you don't get a chair.
What?
But you've got a very important job. You need a flip chart, which is you're going to find something over here. And in case anyone hasn't worked out what we're doing yet, anyone know what we're doing? So this is called a fishbowl. Yeah. So you follow me. The rules of the fishbowl are quite easy. These 4 self-appointed experts are going to share with us their views on why Kaizen alone is not the way to effect organisational change. Kaizen, for anyone not familiar with it, the lean thinking tool meaning continuous improvement. Because if you only pursue small incremental continuous improvement, you are likely to end up on the road to hell. Sometimes you need to be more radical about how you make your changes. Yeah? Now, at any point in time, one of you may disagree with one of these experts. Oh yeah, it's possible.
Can I borrow your slot?
No. Sorry, facilitator only. And if you do, I would invite you to come up and join the fishbowl. That's why there's an empty seat. Anyone at any point in time who wants to contribute something to the discussion can come up and take that empty seat. When they do, however, one of the people already in the fishbowl must leave. And this is where it gets to be good news for you, because the person leaving the fishbowl takes over that role of the flip chart as being described for the session to capture any useful points that are raised. Yeah? So, you've got your topic, the road to Agile Health, Kaizen. Not enough. Thoughts? Views? This is the bit where you speak!
Okay, so to begin with, obviously improving is something, we can improve in all kinds of areas, but we only have limited time, limited possibilities. So if we don't know where we want to improve, we potentially might waste a lot of energy getting better somewhere where we might not need it, but where the impact of what we are improving is not as big. So therefore, just looking at where we improved and not knowing where we have to improve is definitely a topic, and this needs some agreement on continuous improvement by itself will not just cut it.
Maybe
Now,
also.
can I just jump in with the facilitators now? Please don't talk to me, I'm not important.
Maybe also have a systemic approach, because if you improve something in one aspect, it might lead to what do you say, decrease of improvement. But it gets bad, more bad for other instances that have to work and collaborate that you need to take also into account.
But I think what Iain was trying to say is that it's not enough to prioritize the problems and to start with the first one which we can improve. But I think we need to have a look from the outside on the whole strategy, and maybe we need to make a fundamental change in our thinking. What do you think?
Oh, me. I think Kaizen, this is these little steps, and you talked about systemic views, little improvements, selection of improvements, etc. I think if you want to go away from little baby steps forward, that means we need to look outside of the system, outside of the existing structure. And if you're only taking baby steps, we are still stuck probably in the existing structure, which might end up. I mean, if this room might be our structure or is our system, we can take baby steps towards the door, but that's the end. So, and then we need to start thinking a little bit more radically. Outside the box, outside the room, maybe.
On the other hand, small steps aren't that bad generally, because with small steps you have fast progress, you can see how good you're moving along, you can change direction. We all know this from the Agile approach, that we have iterations where we get short feedback loops, and if you have small steps, then you also have room for changes towards the improvement. Right?
But we still need to keep a very clear view of the basic goal, for example, for the customer, because maybe we take small steps and we implement small parts of his product, but we have to make sure it's the product he wants, for example. So we always have to keep a very clear view on the objective and still verify it from time to time.
And also measuring, of course.
Yes.
Somehow, whether we reach our improvement or not.
I will actually put a question out there just to play the devil's advocate. I mean, is there no way that we reach a point where we are good enough, where we don't need to improve anymore? Because I mean, I remember this from last year's discussion. We are asking people to change all the time. We are change agents. We try to get them better and better and better. I mean, when will they be good enough? Can we never ever reach that?
Well, if we okay, I think we are drifting from the topic. But if we take a look at good is fast, right? It's in the human nature that we are never satisfied, and that we can always improve. And even if we reach our initial goal, we will still have new goals. And so I think it's in the nature of.
Yeah, but isn't that kind of leading us to hell? We're trying to get faster and faster and faster. Do we need to get faster? Is our work by having to improve better? I know that we have to do it because there's always competition, and I personally do like improving, but if we don't know where and why we are doing this, just to get better and faster, is that really the goal that will help us? I mean, I like to improve because, yes, it gives me satisfaction, but actually, yes, I'm better. I'm better. I'm better than I was 50 years ago, but where are we going at? What is it?
I mean,
how many burnouts do we have? How many?
Yeah, I mean, if you put pressure on that, I think that's really the issue then. So I wouldn't put pressure on that. I mean, the environment around us is changing all the time. So change is part of our nature, of our environment, of our system we are living in. So we can't stop doing that. We can't say, okay, please air stop flowing. I mean, that's not going to happen. If you want to become better and better and better, I can imagine that could lead to burnout, yes, but only if we put pressure on it. It would also contradict one of the Agile principles, of course, and that's a sustainable base. I mean, also for change, we need sustainable base, I guess. And that's, I think, and also we need time to rest. Agility is not about changing all the time. It's about being adaptive, being responsive to change, but still taking your time to calm down and rest, and even if you don't change for a year, it might be okay in my point of view. And that's still baby steps forward. Yeah.
The question would be, what is a baby step and what is improvement? How do we measure the improvement? This baby step, of course, maybe you do a baby step, but the improvement behind it is massive. It could also be right.
Could be right, yeah.
On the other hand, not changing might be a baby step, because you need your time to relax.
Yeah.
But are baby steps enough? All the time?
If you have a big goal and you're taking baby steps, it might take a very long time until you get there. But the thing is, with a really big leap, could you achieve this, or do you need from the setting baby steps?
Maybe we need a complete reset.
Well, here's a question, and this is for all of you. How many of your teams make changes, actually really make changes after the retrospective? Okay. Second question, how many of your teams make changes to the way they do things without the retrospective? Just in the middle of a sprint, they see something that they could do better and they make the change. So why do you bother with retrospectives?
We need to find out the points, the threats.
I mean, thank you, it's a serious question because...
Well, the hands just indicated they're making changes, whether they are good or not.
Yes. But the question was a serious question because in the history of Scrum, in the first few years of Scrum, the retrospective was not part of Scrum. The retrospective was added in about 1994, 95, after quite a lot of argument within the then senior echelons of the Scrum community, and it was Esther Darby that pushed for the retrospectives to be added. And the argument against it was, why would you wait till the end of a sprint to improve? Unfortunately, the argument came from somebody who other people knew and knew that their team never improved. So they sort of lost the argument because they never improved anyway.
I think it's very important sometimes because this is a dedicated time and place without context switches or something that the team knows, okay, today we are focusing on what we can improve. And improvement doesn't also mean that we're talking retrospectives here, like we're talking about things in the past, but we could also talk about the future, hey, where we want to head. It makes totally sense after some time to not only review, but to take some time to set a new goal or a new direction.
I actually got quite in some trouble in my company because I cut the retrospective. And I didn't cut the retrospective because I don't think it's cool or something, but we have a full improvement backlog and we don't get done with it. So then I said, if we already know a lot of things we want to improve and we don't get those done, then why do we need to have further retrospectives? There are a lot of things we know we want to improve, so let's do this, and I rather look forward to get the improvement going and look where can we trigger those things. Obviously, there should have been some, maybe I overlooked the time when we didn't do it for too long, and I still didn't get my improvement locked down to the size I wanted to, and maybe there's need for reprioritization. But yes, this having to have a retrospective actually is kind of like having to have a coffee break. I would think it's valid to say what is coming out of it, and just like with anything, any process we are doing, saying, does it fulfill its purpose?
Yeah, but on the other hand, if you have some kind of retrospective where the team member think about, you can unearth things that weren't there before. And I think if you have an improvement backlog where nothing moves forward, it's some kind of focus. Like with my team, we are said, okay, hot topic for this retrospective is communication, and we think about how can we improve our communication, and everyone is behind it, and then we have action items and we move this forward, and we also make the progress visible. So this is definitely a point where during the sprint you wouldn't think about how can we improve our communication or something like this, right? Yeah, please, everyone, join in.
So for me personally, I wouldn't cut out the retrospectives. I think it's very important. The only thing is the sprints need to be short enough so that we don't waste a whole lot of time until we put into practice some important changes. Also, I didn't raise my hand when Iain asked whether we also changed something during the sprint, because I mean we noticed stuff during the sprint, and actually I write it down to discuss it because it's not my sole decision, and I need to discuss it and align it with the team. But I think where we are stuck right now, you know, like retrospective is just like looking back for the past 2 weeks. And the planning is like looking forward for the next 2 weeks, but this is still a very little period of time. So maybe we really need some kind of realignment of the strategy meeting additionally, you know, just to be sure that we are still on the right track, because sometimes it's easy to drift and lose the scope.
Please do. There's a nice empty seat here for you right in the middle. Now somebody has to leave. Okay. Take over Scrum. Now you get the idea.
So actually we are also working in teams and having a retrospective every 2 weeks. But actually my Scrum Master said, if you have a team that's working together very good, maybe the retrospective is only short. Because all these things are already, you have to talk about during the sprint. Okay, so the retrospective is more or less a point where the team says and summarizes what was good, again, what should be changed in the future, maybe, but you usually have only little points which are really urgent.
This is a very important topic that I've asked myself a lot, because with a retrospective you don't want to break the flow of the team. If the team is in really flow, and I'm talking here Pantarei kind of flow, then you wouldn't want to mess it up with extensive retrospectives or stuff. But the question to me, I know it's not the Kaizen topic, is where does the flow end and stagnation begin? And therefore, if you have some continuous feedback cycles where you just stop and think, you can see, okay, are we stagnating or are we in the flow?
I appreciate that you mentioned the flow. Of course, it's a nice feeling when the team kind of works together very well and everybody is communicating very well. But the thing is, it's still very probable that sometimes they are so mesmerized by the next goals, and still someone needs to keep the big picture in mind. You know, I experimented this in my private project, and you know, just some new opportunities arise, and then, oh, we should take this, and then sometime I got to chill down and analyze, and I was like, oh my god, actually these two opportunities we took don't, yes, but do not even align with our initial goal.
The question is who is allowed to join the respective. If you only have the team there, okay, it might be the same all the time, that we were very good, we are improving because we don't have an outside view of that. But maybe if you take a product owner or someone from another team you work with into the retrospective and ask them, okay, what's your view of my team? Where do you see the points where we can improve? It depends how you organize the retrospective.
Well, I think the retrospective is, you know, just like team internal, and this is what I'm saying, like we should take one person from the team to represent the team, but still discuss it on a higher level with the higher people.
All retrospectives, like in less.
Excuse me?
And in less, there's this principle of the overall retrospective where like call it ambassadors. If I'm in the right terminology right now, come together and discuss overall systemic topics. So this would be something like this, or where are you thinking?
Yes, but not even, like, retrospective means looking at the last sprint, right? So,
sorry to interrupt, but I think we need to define this retrospective terminology better. Because if I'm talking retrospective, I can also set a focus towards the future. I can set a focus towards team topics. It's all about how we set the focus for this meeting, where we focus on feedback and improvements. And to me, a retrospective is not something where you say, it depends totally on the team, where you say, okay, we really look at the last 2 sprints, but where you say, okay, what does the team need and where do we focus on?
I tend to focus my retrospectives a lot on awareness, to make the team aware of problems and so forth. I seldomly really talk about how to do sprint planning or refinement better, because that I can teach as a Scrum Master on the way while doing it and improve it, get a new practice in and let them try them out and see what's getting feedback on the way while having a coffee. So in the retrospective, I want to make them aware of what problems are there and what better ways of communicating.
From your point of view or from
no, I just have I own the process. The input comes from the team. They see it.
Yeah, okay, but if the team is working together for years, actually maybe they don't see the problems anymore because they used to work together and say, okay, everybody knows everybody else. We're working this way for months now, for 100 sprints.
So I don't want to get too bogged down with retrospectives.
Yes,
that's also sorry I introduced it now. But I have got one more question about retrospectives for you. How many of your teams make multiple changes out of a single retrospective? Right. This is sort of getting back to where we started from, because making multiple changes is actually going a bit more radical, yeah? Although it's still an improvement pathway, it's a more radical change or set of changes to drive that improvement.
Yeah. It really depends on what kind of changes are we aiming for. Because if we're talking about behavioral changes, I recommend my team that they're picking one. If we say, okay, let's put a new structure here and let's make a new board there, maybe there can be plenty.
yes.
So, but if you really want to make a behavioral change and you want to make it to stick to our team or environment or company, then we really should focus on one area.
Maybe talk through usually when it comes to action items or something. If it's not something really easy, like Christoph said, I recommend my teams not to do more than 3 or maximum 5 action items for the next time, so that we don't lose focus and don't take too much time. Because there's also the question of how much time do we spend on improvements, how much time can we and won't we spend on improvements, right? And if it's too much action points and it takes half time of the next sprint, the question is it perfect? Is the outcome worth what we put into it? And you should always ask.
Another question for you. How many of your teams really, this is going to take some courage from people, honestly deliver a releasable increment of their product every sprint?
What was it that you
Every
said?
sprint.
Every sprint.
single sprint.
Because hey, that's a rule in Scrum, yeah? You have to have, you're certified trainer. Don't you have to have a new releasable version of the product every sprint? Sure. Isn't that a rule? Sure. So just because it's Scrum these days. How much change do you think your teams would need to make to be able to deliver a releasable increment of the product every sprint? That's going to take quite a lot of change for most teams, yeah?
We will also release each sprint, that would be the next question, because then the team would ask, why should we deliver something shippable if it's not shipped for the next?
Well, I would hope a good Scrum Master could answer that question.
There's a huge difference between releasing and shipping, because to be released, what means it is integrated, and there are a lot of predictions too, which are necessary to emphasize, are we done or are we?
Now, the reason I bring this up is because this is where actually radical change is often needed in teams, and where if you just make small changes one at a time, you will end up on this road to hell. And what happens on this road to hell is ultimately people think, the managers, the bosses, they think, well, this Agile thing, this was supposed to make us faster, yeah? It's not making us faster. Agile's failed.
That's what you usually hear.
Yeah. But of course, Agile hasn't failed. The people have by not actually changing the way they work radically enough, quickly enough, that they aren't really Agile.
Those are the question, what do you think is radical? It might be radical for one team, and just very nature to the other.
Depends on the project you work on.
Does it?
If you,
The project or the company you work in, if you have one big product you're working on it with 20, 25 teams, and they're only releasing it once a month or 2 months, within 2 months, and the user stories of the work you have to deliver is quite big.
you don't think
You don't usually don't deliver
to the size of the people, but to the people and the culture in general, no matter the size. Because if you say, oh, we should do pair programming or other technical things, then one team says, okay, let's do it, and the other one says, no, never. So it's the approach of the teams and the company.
We are talking right now, has Agile failed? And I think this is a very important topic that also Klaus Leopold talked about yesterday. If we only implement Agile on team level, can Agile fail? Don't we need to have this view also if we need to work in another mindset and in another way, on another level, only then can Agile succeed? Maybe this would be also very valid questions, right?
Well, I don't think Agile can fail. I don't think Agile can fail or Agile can succeed. People fail or people succeed. It's like the difference between doing Agile and being Agile. A person can choose to be Agile or can choose not to be Agile.
And just to play the devil's advocate, would you then say this is about hiring the right people with the Agile mindset, or people who are able to incorporate the Agile mindset?
Yes, because ultimately to me it comes down to people. It's, people are successful or people fuck up.
Then, not that you want
Yeah, I don't want to put any pressure on anyone here, but every week a new releasable version of your
Then the conclusion would be that if you do an Agile transformation where 80% of the people are not able somehow or don't want to get into the Agile mindset, Agile will fail.
No, people will fail, the transformation will fail.
Yeah, transformation will fail.
No.
Are you trying to improve
Who's involved in a transformation project or a program? Why? Now, serious question, why? Because doesn't a project or a program have a finite end? And isn't change continuous? Aren't you always transforming if you're agile?
That's a way to improve radical law.
Yeah? Stop doing these transformation projects, they don't work. Snake oil.
And where are we at Kaizen?
I don't know. But that's the beauty of the fishbowl, you see, you guys control the conversation. You want to come back to Kaizen?
Maybe.
Then bring it back.
Okay, a transformation with baby steps.
Yeah, a transformation with baby steps is as opposed to a transformation with giant leaps and some baby steps, and some more giant leaps and some baby steps. And some standing still for a while. Not forever.
Even steps back can be an improvement.
Well, but this is another thing that I find interesting with improvement. Goiko talked about, from a product perspective, you can build features for your product and then find out that they actually make your product less valuable. It's the same with changing the way that we work as a team. We can make changes and find out that those changes actually make us worse. That's not a bad thing, because we are continually experimenting.
As long as we learn how to do it.
As long as we learn how to do it and use that learning, yeah. So that's where the whole premise of this came from, was baby steps versus giant leaps versus taking moments to pause and maybe we aren't good enough for now. We're good enough for now because the world around us is still changing.
Yeah,
Well, because
start changing if we see it.
So
That's all the thing. What do you expect from this change or improvement? You can make a test coverage of 100% and then find out, okay, we should have spent our time better in something else.
yeah, we've got 100% test coverage, but our product doesn't do what the users want.
Yeah.
Or need. But it works.
We didn't understand our business cases. We should have focused on that.
Oh, I thought you were going to get up there. You look like you were poised to come and take it. Anyone else got any views? Thoughts? I know.
Yeah, there is!
I knew it, Bill, I knew.
You wanted to comment?
Oh, that's a double change of scribe. You didn't even get the top off the bat.
So, what do you bring?
I think everything is okay, but if you don't have the culture and the values to these things to happen, you can do whatever steps you can, but you will get a lot of resistance. So you have to
So
somehow.
you mean the culture to improve at all?
The culture would have the similar values. Because if you have like, in the school, for example, you go to school, the groups form. Why do the groups form? Because each group values something else. Some people listen to punk music, some people to rock, etc. And in the company is the same. So if you have like a culture that's is always complaining, and the culture that is trying to improve and do this, it's conflicting. So if you put these all things together, then you have a culture that is open for these small changes or big changes or.
Okay, basically you form your teams in a way that you say, okay, this is a team that can work together and can improve as a team.
Yeah, but you have to identify the values.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
The most interesting ideas of improvement experiments come out of those discussions. Having a different opinion, if we all have the same opinion, then we might not ending on the road to hell because we're just doing anything. We think it's cool, but we don't get a fresh input.
That's what I said. If you work together for 100 sprints, everybody knows each other. They have the same mindset and say, okay, we made it again. Yes, we are the best. Let's go for a coffee. That was the retrospective, something like that.
But do they really have the mindset possible? Because
it depends what you see as the best mindset possible, but actually if you don't bring new ideas to the team or getting some feedback from outside.
Well, for me, this continuous drive towards perfection is one of the ideas you normally accomplish at some point of your agile journey. You say, okay, I'm not done when it's good. I always try to get it better, whatever better means, of course. And of course, we don't know if it surely will be better, as we discussed earlier. But to not stop improving and not stop challenging yourself is some sort of mindset thing that was referred to.
Yeah, that might be there, yes, but actually, especially in my team, the improvement was not mostly not coming out of the retrospective, but during work. It's okay, we are slow in developing or whatever, our test cases are too slow, let's do some enabler or something like that and check if we cannot do it better. And that's all at a continuous way during your
But you do retrospective meetings, right?
Yes.
Yes.
And then what are you doing in the retrospective meeting when the most of the topics?
Yeah, that's the thing, that mostly you take, okay, we
discuss the topics then in the retrospective meeting.
Of course, you always have some topics there, especially the Scrum Master usually brings something in that he or she did see what was not very good from their side, or someone from another team brought in, and then you do this action item that basically, for a long time, you can see the team, okay, said, yes, we're working good. So we fit our goals, everything was working. Okay, so we had to bring some more ideas, or you don't see any conflicts within the team, you have to bring something in that, okay, makes the team improve. Basically, communication with other teams or whatever.
I only partly agree. If you go for the systemic coaching approach, you think that the people around have all the skills and the wisdom necessary to improve. So if I start always coming with the idea how to improve as a Scrum Master, kind of create a self-fulfilling prophecy that they relate on it. Yeah, they relate on bringing new stuff in.
Yes, so I'm not a Scrum Master, so
after a certain time I started challenging the team, hey, you bring me the idea, I'm going to facilitate it for you, but you are responsible for that, and therefore you create the culture.
I think you need not really be responsible for that. You need to find in the retrospective meeting who is responsible for such an action.
No, the team is responsible for the improvements. Whatever, who brings the idea is a different question, but the team or the organization, if you scale it up, is responsible, and that means everybody is responsible for it. And in this retrospective, the facilitator, if it's the Scrum Master on the team level or some facilitator on a high level, I don't care, but the facilitator just owns the process. And he might use some coaching techniques or creativity techniques or whatever to help the participants.
Yes.
And then there shouldn't be the thing, oh, we don't have anything and we don't want to, because then starting working exactly on that.
But I suppose the Scrum Master can bring in some points. For example, he has the metrics and he can bring a point, we were too slow.
Yeah, but why does the Scrum Master owns the metrics and not the teams who is responsible to change this?
It depends on. But in my case, I will create the metrics and take care about it.
I sometimes just make them visible what they make. If they keep the metrics or not, it's up to them. I just genuinely that they are responsible. And if you more and more start to do that, they're also doing it then. And taking on this responsibility and taking on this free space and say, okay, we have to own it. It's our responsibility and our duty, and it's fun actually.
What happens to the team if they continuously fail in doing?
I try to help them understand why. Yeah. So we've seen in the last couple of sprints always we fail improving. What was wrong? What is your opinion about it? Maybe, I don't know, pick any suitable format which brings out something, root cause analysis, whatever.
Yeah. And if this is on the system level and system level does not respond, what do you do?
Growing critical mass who is willing to take it on.
And if the people are in the stage that they don't give a shit, it's sorry for words. What do you do then?
Well,
You're basically in front of the wall that is unpenetrated.
I guess I've never been there that there was nobody to care. And I started with the ones who care, and while working with them, the crowd did grow. Who cared? And then you can work with them, and it gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And sometimes you have.
So you come back to the community.
Yeah,
You are forming the people that care, and then they climb the wall together.
As a Scrum Master, I'm forging culture. I help them getting on the way. The more I do actively, the less they do, and the less responsibility will take on.
What do you do when, for example, the team says we need to take a bigger change and change the management a little bit? The management says no.
If the management agrees to it, said okay, we want to have Agile, I can understand that this is Agile, and if you shut it down, then you basically shut it down, and then it's your choice, not mine.
Yeah, you can see the mix.
No, I don't blame. Yeah. It's not about blaming. I said you have options, and you should be aware of the risk and the outcomes and the impact. And we can have a discussion on the impact, and if it's the impact you want to have and you want to create, it's not about blaming. It's just about making or raising awareness.
Yeah, but for that you have to kind of like collect data to show the management, look, this is really the thing, and compare them to something. Because if you come just with words, they will say,
yeah,
sure. Depends.
Your managers are very mature, aren't they?
It's all about relationships, isn't it?
Yeah.
So if you don't have build up the relationship towards the team, towards management, towards whoever, they will say, okay, never mind. If you have some sort of relationship, then maybe even a word might be enough. It might not, depends on the time.
The trust.
you have to build a relationship.
Christoph, you remind me of a training course I did a few years ago where the CEO of the company was in the room. And most of the people on the course were developers. And the developers kept sitting there throughout the 2 days saying, well, they're not going to let us change that. Oh, they'll never let us change that. And I just started coming out with Ken Bexell's line, you know, if you can't change the place you work, change the place you work. And the CEO came up to me and said, would you mind not costing me all my staff? And I said, what do you mean? He said, well, all this if you can't change the place you work, change the place you work. And I just looked at him and said, I'm not costing you any staff. You're hearing things that the people doing the work are frustrated about and want to change. You're the CEO. You can let them change it, or you can stop them changing it. But if you don't let them change the place they work and they then decide to change the place they work, that's you costing you staff, not me.
True. If I can go to trust, it's like trust is how to earn. You like make one mistake, you have to do 7 things to earn that trust back.
I'm going to challenge you on that one.
Please.
Trust is hard to earn. No, it's not.
Okay.
Trust is easy to lose.
Sorry.
Because let's face it, most of us, transact with people we don't know all the time, and that's all done on the basis of trust. Yeah. Trust is easy to earn.
Yeah.
It's implicit. It's really easy to lose.
That's true.
And this is the case with the management. So they do things that are losing trust of the people, and then, like you said, people.
Yes. But again, if you say, hey, it's an experiment, we don't know if you're going to succeed in the first place, we have to do it over and over again, maybe a couple of times, maybe slightly variations of it, because we know it's not perfect, but it's on the way. So if you say, okay, we have an idea and everything will work, yeah, of course, it's about also managing expectations. If you be honest and say, okay, I don't know if it's going to work, then it's his decision.
Can you improve if you don't make it up? You can learn from something that you failed. Sometimes more than from something that you reach.
But unfortunately, it's together to learn. It's not just singular.
You just have to accept it that you failed.
Exactly.
The worst thing is that if you don't accept you failed, but always for someone else, then you will not improve anyway. But
Who finds failure a very negative idea?
Idea from the word, yes.
Yeah.
They learn from failures.
Well, no, we don't.
I've
We learn from experimenting. Experimenting to test a hypothesis that may or may not prove to be valid.
The sheet is back.
And if we actually approached our work from that perspective, of that we're experimenting, and we have a hypothesis that this experiment will yield this outcome. I always remember my youngest son coming home one day from school. He was studying chemistry. And actually, as part of his exam, he had to do this experiment, and the whole class had done it. And everyone had got the expected result, apart from my son. He's special. And the teacher said around to him and said, "McKenna, you failed. Your experiment's failed." And he looked at the teacher and said, "No, it didn't, sir. It just didn't yield the result we expected." Well, the teacher thought about it for a few minutes and he said, "Actually, you're right, an experiment does not fail. It just does not always give us the result we want." So we actually switched this around to experimentation, which is what we're doing. We're trying new things. We're trying to uncover better ways of working, better ways of building better products. And if we take that experimentation approach, we never have to talk about failure. We just have an experiment that didn't yield what we expected. And that also helps create some safety, some psychological safety, because you remove the whole concept of failure out of the whole organisation. Wow.
But that's the thing, you have expectations in the people. You can encourage experimentation, you can say that it's not important to get the right results every time, but it's very difficult, or for me it's very difficult, to manage to get this across. I told my team we never messed up an entire sprint by doing something risky. We mess up sprints because of other things, but we never take a risk. But still, it's about there is getting there or not getting there, and we are not trying to do it a risky way or something. We don't try to experiment. We get there either by the way we always do it, or we don't get there by the way we always do it. But proposing and telling them it's not important and let's try it in a new way, it's still in the mind of the people, okay, we know what the expected result of the experiment will be, so we should be able to achieve it, and that's something I struggle with. Because it's nice to say, oh, to try to...
Yeah, you're afraid of failure. So actually, you're afraid of failure and say, okay, I have to argue if I fail, so better not fail.
But it's better
Don't try
give it a
something.
try.
I can't encourage them to fail, because failure will be negative. No matter what I say, it's...
But that's why I use experimentation, because experiments don't fail. Let's try an experiment. Let's try this as a different way of doing it.
Yes.
Let's see whether it works or not. This is what we think could happen. This is our feed forward, if you like. But we're going to actually try it and then use feedback to determine whether, oh, we've got a new fish.
Alright, so
Hi, fish.
just coming from my experience, talking about Agile and all the ceremonies like retrospective standards and all these things, how important it is, and if you skip one of those, you will fail, right? And we've tried everything, and we adjusted the process 100 times, and at some point we really have some Scrum, of course. I wouldn't say Scrum anymore. But what really matters, I think, is the content. Yeah? Because the Scrum is the framework, or Agile is such a framework. So if you want to make a change, as a part of the retrospective, how I see it, you need to sell the idea to the team, right? So we don't make a change just for the sake of a change. So for example, why are we failing to deliver a shippable product at the end of the sprint? How can we do this? And then we explore opportunities And for example, one reason why we've done it is because our automated testing is going to be enough. So if people on the team understand that spending more time on automated testing will improve the process, and it's easy to sell it. If you just identify the problem and you don't get, or you don't have any solution that is easy to sell, we will always have negative views. So, that's my experience.
I like that you actually start with, or you start with the why. You start with almost like setting a goal for the improvement. Okay, we can't produce potentially shippable, releasable version every sprint. That's our goal. How do we get there?
Exactly. So when you had the retrospective, you had this what could you do well and what could you do better. And I think the other part is how. Right? So we need to also suggest some ideas, because what we found out after a while when we had retrospective is that they started to be too repetitive. So we're talking about the same style over again, but no actions really happening. So at some point we stopped doing that regularly. It was more like when we actually use also the standard meetings to bring in some problems. We don't address them straight away, but it triggers another workshop that we take offline. And so it's an ad hoc approach. And when we see the problem, we are acting in an agile well, but not in a well that we have it, okay, so now, annual sprint, we need to meet and need to think about the problems, right? It's more like when the problems appear, we act straight away. It may not work for everything because it kind of can feel like it's not really, well, it's kind of a case, right? But it's not really the case. So, that's how I feel. Really, when there is a problem and there is an opportunity to find time, we try to address it straight away.
This is interesting to me because there's been a lot of talk over the last 10, 15 minutes about failure and problems. What about the things that are working well? How many of you try to improve those? How many of you are familiar with the positive attractors and negative attractors language of complexity theory? How many of you look for and actively, and your teams actively look for and take the positive attractors and look at how you can leverage more value out of those? Because if your retrospectives always focus on problems and failures, they're going to get pretty negative, aren't they?
Not really. We have this.
Normally humans remember the negative points more than the positive points. It is sometimes really hard to find.
That's why we have to actively draw out the positives as well.
Yes.
Because, yeah, I used to encounter these agile coaches that would walk into organisations and basically say, everything's shit, you're doing it all wrong, you need to do it like this. And of course they get sacked within a few weeks because they really just been off.
I think
not everything is shit. There are things that are good in any organisation.
Yeah, we are talking about failure, but obviously you need to keep the positive spirit in the team. So if something goes well, you need to make sure that the news is spread. It's like, you know, it's everywhere in life, we want to criticize something. There is an analogy. So you put some money into your bank account and you can only withdraw as much as you put in. So if you want to criticize, you also have to do some positive things first. And then yeah, so if you are always negative, then you create a negative mood in the team and people will just hate you. So you need to also think about what went wrong. Well, if you have a really bad team, everything goes wrong, it's hard to do that. I'm pretty sure everything has some better times, right? And a good lead for Scrum Master. I'm not sure if it's a necessary role of the Scrum Master. The Scrum Master is more to me somebody who is just looking after the process. There should be somebody in the team that identifies positive things. Be a senior guy or manages teams in discussion.
I might take that back now to the topic. I think that with Kaizen and where we are going and improving and having a goal where we want to reach, we don't know whether it's big steps or small steps we have to take. And if I take this bank comparison, I mean, I don't know what I need. So for me it is, when I was saying, I was complaining on a very high level, I'm very happy with one of my teams to say it this way, and when I say these negative things, of course, these are the things that are pressuring me. I would like to have a solution. I can't propose experiment, but because I don't know what they should experiment on. I just notice that they don't do it, and I try to create a framework. But yes, actually now considering this, I also don't know where do we want to get. I know that we don't have a paid sprint. I know that I never had to say, okay, what we did the last 2 weeks, we had to throw away.
So what is the position in the team? I'm a little confused. Are you Scrum Master?
Yes, that has been also under debate. I'm the engagement manager, and I am also an agile coach, so I'm messing up everybody. I've been criticized for that too. I can give them the leeway that they can mess up, and I want them to experiment, but I'm not the Scrum Master, so yeah, it's kind of a double position. But what I see is we are talking about giving people the freedom, and it's difficult if they don't know what to do with it. It's creating the safety is one thing, but if everything stays the same, as soon as you start then saying, okay, now change this or this or this, you're starting pushing it. That's what I don't want to do. And I think this is really something we say, yes, we want to provide people with the possibility to be agile, but if they keep working the same way they are doing, then what's about self-organization? You can't say, okay, then it stays the same, okay, so what?
You're absolutely right.
It also depends on the feedback. So if the stakeholders say everything is okay, it will also be, it's okay, I'm happy. They're happy, I'm happy. But if there is not this feedback, because if you do it, you will get resistance. You cannot do anything.
No, I'm happy with my team. That's what I'm saying. Okay. I'm happy with my team, and that's also the question on how to improve. I'm happy with one of my teams, to put it this way. I'm very happy with one of my teams, and but still, they are not. They don't make use of the freedom I give them, and I have to say that it's okay. That's an interesting
are you
thing.
happy with that team if they're not making use of the freedom you give them?
Yes, still, because what they are doing is fine. I mean, I don't want to put pressure on them that they have to change. They are still doing their thing.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Oh my God.
You see, especially as an agile coach, I wouldn't be happy with a team that were just keeping on doing the same thing.
No, they are improving, don't get me wrong. They are just not experimenting. They are continuously improving their...
I would be happy with a team that wasn't experimenting. Because isn't that what you actually want them to do?
Is it in the nature to take a risk?
Well, you know, most people are risk averse. And you know why most people are risk averse? Because if they take a risk and it doesn't pay off, the risk materialises, they get punished in some way for it. So that discourages them from taking a risk. And you say you created an environment of psychological safety.
I'm trying to. Obviously I failed.
It's not there.
Yeah.
Yeah? Maybe expose your vulnerability. Maybe tell them what you've been trying to do and admit your failure.
Are you telling them that you're satisfied with them?
I hope I do. I hope I do.
Are they satisfied?
Some are. There's some person leaving the team actually, so there's one person who doesn't like the way I do it, but some are very happy. And as I said, I see improvement all the time, but I think it's very much in our culture that we have to have a result of the sprint and that we can't throw away a sprint. So I've never seen it in my whole company, that somebody had to say, okay, what we did the last 2 weeks, we have to throw it away, it was shit. It's just not in our nature yet. And I don't know, let me ask the question here, who had this, that he said, okay, we tried something last 2 weeks as a team and we have to throw it away? Okay. Obviously I'm not doing a good job.
I have a question actually. It seems that you're expecting them to do something from your perspective, but you're saying that they're not happy with the way you do it, and then you have a Scrum Master and you're an Agile coach. Isn't this the way that you're pushing them? You want them to do something that you would like to have, but you're not aware of it. Or probably this thing is not bringing anybody to the team itself.
Of
maybe it's good to step back, give them some space to find out, to create this environment, and see if those issues are actually valuable for them as a team. Will they bring any value to the team or not?
Sometimes I think it's good to show them that you're not satisfied because it's not good. Because when they are working, and if the sprint is working and everything is always fine, you always tell them, yeah, it's good and you're the best ones and I like it, blah blah blah. But in that case, they will never change because it's good anyway.
I have a provocative question. Is our job that we are satisfied? Usually as a manager, you have some stakeholders, you have maybe your shareholders, you have to provide a value. I suppose that we have a different ways, so maybe I could take a chair there.
I would love you to take a chair there, but we're now eating into your lunchtime because it's now just gone 12 o'clock.
Because we have companies who have to provide profits. If you are on an exchange, stock exchange, or shareholders, you have to provide. If you are a startup, you can burn the money, you can screw the, sorry for my French, screw a screen and two, maybe even three, nothing happens. And it's a little change. But again, is it if you are, I suppose, because you are pretty profitable, so you have to provide some profit to your shareholders.
So, if anyone wants to leave and go and get lunch, if you will please leave feedback. If anyone wants to stay and help move the tables back, that would be really much appreciated. I hope you've enjoyed it. I hope you've got something of it. We've got the summary there on the flip chart, in the video.
Well done, everyone. Yeah.